If your goal is to skyrocket your jazz playing and improve more than you ever have this year, then I want to help you with that. Let's go over 3 things that will take your jazz playing to the next level. Now, these 3 things I'm going to share with you are things that I've seen my inner circle members who have been with me for a while see tremendous success doing these practicing habits. And so if you're someone who's looking to really get the most out of your practice time this year to really improve and start playing jazz solos that feel effortless and fun and exciting, then you're really gonna wanna pay attention to these strategies. So strategy number 1 is to make a goal to learn 1 jazz standard a month. Make a goal to learn 1 jazz standard a month. So first of all, why jazz standards? So when I think of jazz standards and practicing jazz standards, it's really what we would call the 20% of the 80-20 rule of learning jazz. If you're not familiar with that, it's also called the Pareto principle, which basically says that 80% of the results that we're getting in our playing and our musicianship are coming from 20% of the actual efforts we're making. So jazz standards are the 20%. If you're constantly learning new jazz standards, you're learning new harmonic lessons, you're learning how to navigate chord changes better, you're learning how to comp better, how to play better bass lines, you're becoming more familiar with what we actually do in jazz. And if you're applying learning solos and exercises and everything to a jazz standard you're learning, you are benefiting the maximum amount from your practice sessions. So why do I say to make a goal to learn 1 each month, which by the way is 12 jazz standards by the end of the year? Well, 1 month is a doable goal for most people, right? Like learning 1 new tune in a month, even if you don't have that much practice time, at the bare minimum, learning the melody and the chords is doable for most people. And then hopefully you have a little extra time to learn part of a jazz solo, part of an etude, part of some chord tone exercises, or something over top of that as well to improve on an area of your playing. So when we're being realistic with how much time we have to really deep dive on something, it really manages expectations and helps us not to get demotivated or burned out. On top of that, I think it's a great idea to spend lots of time working on a jazz standard, at least a month before moving on to the next thing. That way you're not learning 5 or 10 jazz standards in 1 month, which I did 1 year of my life, where you don't really know the jazz standard that well if you're learning too many of them at once. Additionally though, you also have to have a time frame to know when to move on to the next one, because you're never going to master a jazz standard. You're gonna keep improving as you go along, but you need to move on eventually to learn more of those lessons. So moving on to another one after a month is a good time period for most people. And by the way, if you need help doing this, this is actually what we do every single month in my inner circle membership. So I'll leave a link to that in the description down below if this year you want to learn 1 new jazz standard a month and really improve alongside thousands of other jazz musicians doing the exact same thing. So strategy number 2 is to improvise and record. So throughout the year and when you're learning these jazz standards, it's really important that you improvise as much as possible, right? To really just get out there and play from where you're at. Now, you may not be a good improviser right now, but you will never get better if you don't just actually improvise. So you want to improvise as much as you possibly can. Consider it the more you're actually improvising, the better you're ultimately going to get, because essentially you're allowing yourself to learn from your mistakes, trial and error, which by the way comes in with the second part of what I just said. I said to record yourself. Recording is a really big thing that we do actually in my inner circle membership. And the reason that we do a lot of recording is because it's not only documenting your playing so that you can kind of see where you were at a given moment of time. It gives yourself the opportunity to actually listen back and see what was going well and what wasn't going well. On top of that, when you record, you're kind of simulating a performance environment. You may have noticed if you've ever recorded yourself before that you might feel a little bit anxious, sweaty palms, just in general, a little bit of a heightened sense of awareness going on there. So the more that you're recording yourself, the more you're gonna get used to that and not feel those jitters when you're actually going out to start performing and playing. So improvise as much as possible and record yourself as much as possible so that you're just gonna get better all around at those things. Now, strategy number 3 is to continuously audit your playing. Continuously audit your playing. My most successful students are doing this constantly. So after you've recorded your improvisation or a tune that you're working on or some comping or some bass lines or whatever have you, listen back to that recording and ask yourself 2 questions. Question number 1, what do I really like about what I played? This is the most important question to ask, because when you hear something that you like, you want to double down, triple down, quadruple down on it and improve upon it. So even if it's just like a hint of a way you played a melody, or a hint of the way you played a chord, or a certain concept that you really like that you did, perhaps it just really needs to be refined and matured a little bit more. So really identify what those are so that in the practice room, you can practice more of that. And by the way, it's actually a great idea to transcribe yourself, not necessarily write it down, but learn by ear something that you like. I've done that before, is listen back to a recording of myself, really liked a line that I played and figured out what it was, because if I learn that stuff, it's more likely to actually come out in my improvisations organically and naturally. Now, the second question to ask is, what did I not like? Which is usually the first question people start asking themselves when they listen back to recordings. But it is also important because naturally we have to think of it kind of like a torpedo. So when a torpedo shoots out, it's heading towards a target. And when it's heading towards that target, it's going to go off course for a little bit until it shoots off a signal, finds that it's slightly off target, and corrects itself. Then it does it again, corrects itself again, shoots off another signal, corrects itself again until it finally hits its target. And really that's what our practicing should be like as well. Constantly refining the things that we need to work on so that we can get closer to the end result that we're hoping for, which is playing jazz solos and playing jazz at a really high level. So after you've asked these questions, come up with an actual plan to address them. So for example, if you're learning a new jazz standard every single month and you notice that you're really not very good at playing 2-5-1 chord progressions, well, maybe you're going to want to really start learning a lot of 2-5-1 language, or mapping out chord tones to 2-5-1s, composing as many ideas as possible so that as you continue to learn more jazz standards, which inevitably will have more 2-5-1s, you're going to improve on that area. As well as some melodic ideas that you've already identified that you really like, or some comping ideas that you really like, you can refine those, you can get better at that, you can expand your ability to do that, you can dig deeper into what is so great about what you're doing and continue to apply that stuff to your improvisations. What's most important is that this year you're having a lot of fun playing and practicing. So always be focusing on that first and foremost. If we're not having fun, then you're probably going to quit, get burned out, and demotivated. But if you're practicing sustainably, doing things manageably, always seeing that you're improving, even if it's just a little bit at a time, you're going to continue to feel motivated and improve more than you ever have this year. So now, after hearing all that, if you'd like some more deeper strategies for how to get from a beginner to an intermediate to an advanced level jazz musician, I'm going to leave a video on the screen right here that will help you do that and go over some more specifics of what you actually should be practicing. Do check out my Inner Circle membership if you think that that would be a helpful thing for you this year. I'll leave a link in the description down below, as well as a link here on the screen. Make sure you like this video if you found it helpful. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.